All right, so we are here in beautiful Tokyo. I've got another special guest here, my good friend TJ,
Hello.
and he's also going to be talking about his experiences here. So, TJ, can you introduce yourself for the folks watching?
Sure. My name is TJ Kayama. I was born in New York City. I was raised in the tri state area, mostly New York and New Jersey. And I moved to LA, and then now I'm living in Tokyo.
All right, yeah, you've lived in a lot of different places,
That
so
is very true. And I've been in Vancouver. Yeah, shot in Vancouver before too. By the way, I'm an actor, so that's why I go to different places to shoot. So.
yes, and seriously, a talented actor. He TJ is, by the way, the mentor that Takumi was talking about in his own video. So,
What a terrible mentor to have. Seriously.
I mean, that's for them to decide. But I think this guy is one of the best guys I've ever met personally.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I'm very happy to be your friend and happy to be talking with you right here and now.
Ditto.
So
Ditto.
awesome. So TJ, can you tell me
Yeah.
why did you decide to come to Japan?
Well, that was an interesting choice actually because I was afraid to go to Japan because I didn't learn Japanese until later in life. And I had no knowledge of the culture because my parents were, even though they were Japanese and they came from Japan, they brought me up as mostly American and kind of with a little bit of Japanese culture, obviously. I was raised learning English as my first language, and my second language was Japanglish. What is Japanglish, right? It's my parents' English. So I learned English with an accent and with English. So that was interesting. But going back to your question, I was actually scared because of being discriminated, and and it's not anyone's fault. But going to Japan, my relatives or anyone in Japan, because I look Japanese or Asian, they would expect me to understand the culture or the language, right? So I would go there, but people would laugh at the little things I would say, which made me very self-conscious as a child. So I was very scared of going to Japan or living in Japan. I did come here when I was in high school for 8, 9 months. It's not an exchange student, but since I never knew Japanese and I couldn't speak to my grandmother who passed away, and it just broke my heart that I couldn't talk to her. I wanted to learn the language, and I came to Japan. But but even that experience wasn't the best experience, so to speak, because once again, I look very Japanese, I guess. I look Asian, so they expected me to know rules. Whereas I had another friend who was completely white who had no problem because they would actually compliment him if he was speaking little Japanese. Or be like, "Oh wow, your Japanese is great." Whereas for me, they'll be like, "Your Japanese is terrible." So I was very
Mm.
so coming here was a hard decision to make, but I wanted to do it to overcome any kind of fear or being self conscious. So yeah.
Interesting. And just to rewind a little bit, so
Hmm.
your parents spoke English to you growing up, it
Mostly,
sounds
yeah.
like. Wow.
Well, their English, their version of English. So, like for example, aloe or aloe vera, so to speak, right? Aloe vera. So they would say aloe, and then I guess in Japanese it's aloe. So I would go to school and be like aloe or veranda or balcony. They would say veranda. So I would go to school and go veranda, and then they would be like, "What is that? A Spanish word?" And I'm like, "What?" Or other words would be like, oh, there's just a tons of those kind of words. Table, table, and just certain things like that. I would just go to school and like I realized that wait a minute, there's something different here, you know.
Mm.
But yeah, that's it.
So, out of curiosity, do you feel you fit in more in America or Japan?
Oh, that's a great question because honestly, I feel like I fit in the states much more. When I was in New York, that's my home. I really feel like that's my home. And when I moved to LA, that was the first time I was really exposed to more Japanese Americans and Japanese people, because I guess the population are the people that I associated myself with. And even then, it was great to learn more about my culture. I still felt like an outsider, obviously, because I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. So I had to be very self-conscious of everything I did or everything I even talked about, because sometimes I would be rude through their perspective, maybe. Not on purpose. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just telling them my opinion. But there's just certain rules. Like we were talking about. What is that? What is it in Japanese again? Kuki yomanai. Reading the air, or the vibe, basically. And I know that we have that in the States or everywhere in the world, but we just have different cultural expectations or morals or social standards. I mean, that's what society is, basically, right? Collective people making a decision on what they feel like is morally right and what morally isn't right. So moving to LA was a big cultural difference. And then going from here to Japan, I felt the same way. But on the flip side, I also do find comfort in Japan. There are many things that are very convenient, as well as a similar thinking to, I guess, my parents. So there's a certain amount of familiarity, which I feel with my parents. So I feel like after living here, I was finally able to find comfort in Japan. So that question is very hard, because I find comfort in both. To make a long story short, yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, having lived in both countries, they both do feel comforting and in their own ways, for sure.
I think that's what happens when you live in a different country. You know, you really learn about their culture, and it's not just a language that you have to learn. I mean, language is just one thing. People think in order for somebody to learn about their other culture, it's just like to learn the language. But when you actually live there, that's when you realize how different. Like, you can finally be that culture, or that a person of that country. I think you know what I mean. When you speak in English, you have a Steven who is American. But when you speak in Japanese, don't you feel like your personality even changes, the way you think?
I've actually read that, even like scientifically. Like, people, when they speak different languages, their personality changes. It's a real thing.
But I never felt that until I was able to be fluent in Japanese. In the beginning, when I was learning Japanese, I still felt like an American speaking Japanese. But now that I'm fluent in Japanese, I feel that when I do speak Japanese, I'm a different person. I'm like, who is this guy? Having a multiple personality disorder. But I can't imagine people who can speak 3 languages or 4 languages or more.
That's
like,
a trip
what's
to
going
think
on?
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have the rest of our lives to learn even more, 10 languages, 20 languages, so you never know if we want to.
Very true.
What do you believe are the biggest cultural differences between Japan and the U.S.?
Well, one has a very collective mind frame, which is Japan is a very collective mind frame culture. But that isn't a bad thing. They are, as in Japanese, well, Japan isn't a big island. So they try to avoid any kind of conflict. And so the collective thoughts and people caring about other people's feelings or cultural things, I think, is a huge part of their culture. The unspoken language of things are also huge. Even though people aren't really that religious, in Japan they do believe in something, which is, I think, the earth, and that's the one thing that's interesting. The Western culture, we all believe in a religion, or some people are atheists, but people who are religious, we don't really judge them unless they're extremists. But in Japan, people don't talk about their religion. In fact, you rarely find people who have events based around their religion. Like Christianity, we do Christmas, Judaism, obviously we do Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But over here, they believe in the sun, the moon, the mountains, and every New Year's they all go to the shrine, even though they're not Buddhist or they're not Shinto or some might be, but they're very spiritual. So that's a very interesting part that's different. On the flip side, there are social status judgments that happen a lot, especially in the big cities. People do judge each other through status or age. The huge difference between Japan and America, I personally feel, is that once you're a certain age in Japan, there's a limitation of what they feel they can do, or the freedom of change or anything like that. In America, there's no age. You can always go grab your dream however old you are. You can go back to school however old you are. But in Japan, it's like you can only do certain things when you're young, is a consensus of their mind frame. So I think that's a huge difference. In America, also, the people are very different, I think. Openness is definitely one of the big things, but I think that also begins when you are a child in school. We talk about feelings, right, when we're in school. And if you do something bad, the teacher usually, obviously, says, why did you do that? You know, I remember being in school and they're like, well, why did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. No, it's like, no, talk about what you were feeling. You know, so they go through the process of why you did what you did. In Japan, if you do something wrong, you're sent to the principal's office or you're just punished for it. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about why you did it or your feelings. So I think our culture in America is really based on psychology without trying to be upfront about it. But a lot of the educational system is about that. And we have many options as well for that. The cultural differences basically start in school many, many times. Americans believe in second chances, believe in the effort as a whole. So to get into a good college in America, it's not about one test that we do that we get into a good college. It's about what we did overall during our high school years or even middle school. You can get an A, but it doesn't guarantee you to get into Harvard. How do you get into Harvard or any kind of Ivy League is obviously what you do during your high school years, volunteering and everything. In Japan, it's quite the opposite. You can do whatever you want. I don't want to say whatever you want, but it all depends on one test. You can be an A student through your whole high school, but it's that one day, one test kind of thing. There's a lot of pressure, I think. And certain individuals really make an effort to keep their grades up, but then they can be really sick the day of their examinations for a good college. And if they don't do well, that's it. They have to wait another year to apply for that school, or have to apply for another school. I realize that a lot of the Japanese culture it's a one-shot deal. I think things are obviously changing, but even culturally, like sumo, traditional sumo wrestling is you fall or you get pushed out, you win or lose. Even the gambling, it's like, I forgot, I don't even know it, but it's like the black or white or some odds are even. Judo, you throw, ippon, you're done, finished. Kendo, ippon, one shot, done. But when it comes to Western sports like football, you can do a comeback, you know. So I think that kind of the cultural differences is ingrained in us as a child. That there's never we don't have to give up. We can just keep going, and there's always a chance to come back. So it gives us hope, and I think that's a huge difference. We don't put pressure on ourselves, or there's not much of a social pressure that you feel, or judgment. So, and that's why we're not too focused on status oriented as long as we're happy in America. You know, I think Japan is like they feel like status makes you happy rather than not, you know, themselves. But yeah, so that's, I mean, there's much more. I can keep going on about it. That's just one huge difference that I realize in the culture. So.
Can you tell me, TJ, what do you think Japan and the U.S. can learn from each other?
All right, that's a loaded question too. Which is a very good question. The big thing that I think America can learn from Japan is patience. It's unbelievable the amount of patience Japanese people have sometimes. Like, I cannot believe the patience. They would wait on the line for hours and hours without complaining at all. And I sit there and I can't believe how much patience they have. They go on the train, a crowded train, and people are against each other. They don't complain. But the first time I was there in a public transportation, people are squeezing and touching me. I'm like, why are you touching me? You know. But patience is a big thing, and I think it's a good and bad thing. Sometimes it's not good because you feel you don't realize how much you're holding in. So that's the one thing I think Japan can learn from America, which is to let go of certain feelings. I mean, one of the things I think Japan can learn is communication. I'm not saying that they can't communicate with people, but I just feel like there's a certain amount of honesty that lacks in the culture. They say one thing but mean another, or they feel another. I think that's one of the things that they can learn. For example, the gathering, when I was talking about with getting together a lot and talking about feelings, emotionally being available, being honest with themselves. In America, there are things called AA or DA or NA or Al-Anon, and there's groups for opening up your feelings when you go through hard times. AA is for Alcohol Anonymous. People who with alcohol problems, they get together. So they feel like they're not alone. There's a whole huge support system. There's nothing like that in Japan. People don't talk about their feelings. They feel alone, and then they become hikikomori, which is they stay inside their apartment by themselves and don't want to associate themselves because they feel like they're the only ones going through something like that. In the States, in America, I feel like we try to identify as much as possible that you're not alone, which helps the other individual and helps each other, that they feel like they're not alone. So I think like in the States, you feel this openness that you can actually breathe. Ever since I've been in Japan, for me personally, sometimes I feel like I can't breathe because I'm so cautious of what I can say and what I can't say, what I can do, what I can't do. I feel like I've gotten better, but in the beginning I felt like I was walking on eggshells. And I think Japan can learn from letting go and not being so uptight. I know that's a terrible thing to talk about a culture like that, but I just feel like sometimes it's like just let it go, or just it's cool, you know, don't worry about it. And if you can do that, you can really enjoy life more. You know, life isn't that complicated. Who cares what other people think, you know? But the culture is based on not making others around them, they call meiwaku, but in Japanese, but
nuisance.
Yeah, not causing nuisance is one of their big cultural things that they have. But sometimes it's too much, where it's like you don't have to think so much, you know, about that. So
right, because they also have that expression like the nail that sticks out is hammered in, kind of with the conformity thing.
Deru kui ga utareru is what they say. That's one of the things that my friend Eijiro, who's also an actor, Eijiro Ozaki, you guys can look him up. He's an actor. He used to be my roommate in LA, but he taught me that. In America, it's different. If a nail comes up, people celebrate that. People want them to. Right. Yeah, everybody is trained, or it's the complete opposite to Yeah. Okay, sorry. I'm ready for the next question.
I,
Oh yeah.
I think it kind of further going back to what you talked about, like even from a young age in the education system, how kids learn that culture. I know, like in the United States, for example, um, like kids are taught
Mm,
um, sort of like to when answering questions thinking independently,
right.
and I think in Japan my understanding it's taught to just always well I've heard like kids are very afraid to raise their hand in class because they don't want to stand out with their opinion too much.
That's true. That's very true. I've been to both schools. I went to school in Japan for 8 9 months before in high school, uh, and whatever this teacher said, we all listen. You know, and everything is different. They are stuck in one room. In America, in high school, what do? You have lockers. You go to different schools for different subjects, right? That's what we do. In Japan, you are stuck in one room with the same classmates for the whole year, and the teachers come and go. And not only that, when the teacher's there, you just quietly sit there and listen to their lecture. Secondly, everyone during lunchtime we have cafeterias. We go to cafeterias. We have the options. You go to cafeterias, bring your own food, or even just go out of campus if you're a senior or a junior. In America, in Japan, you're stuck in that one room, and students bring food in the classroom and they eat in the classroom. That drove me insane, by the way. So I just went out and ate.
Can never escape the classroom.
No, but I left the room and then I would try to eat somewhere else or I would sit with different groups every day and they just thought I was a weirdo. But I kept telling them, listen, man, I'm American. It's not like I'm just trying to get to know you guys, you know? Why so clicky like that, even though. Oh, and uniforms. Everyone wears uniforms. So what I found interesting about Japan is after high school, people explore different things about fashion. So you see all these different fashions that we, as an American, were able to explore during middle school and high school. For example, I pierced my ear junior, what is it, middle school. I dyed my hair. I shaved the sides. I had different type of hairstyles and everything and clothing uh, and then by the time you're college, everyone just wears pajamas, jeans and t-shirt or whatever. It's like we don't even care, and a hat to go to class, or something like that. We just don't care that much. And then maybe back when you're 20s again, you start dressing up differently. But that's an interesting cultural difference. Not everyone. I'm generalizing right now, so I apologize for those who do not fit in that category. But I'm just talking about in general. So, but that's not the question, was it?
I don't know, but it's an interesting answer no matter what.
Just keep going off subject.
That's fine. All right. Well, let's see. Did I ask this already? What do you love and hate about each country? I think I didn't ask that yet.
No, not yet. You asked it to me. What do I love and hate about the two cultures or the country, right? The country. I love the different. I love both cultures. I really appreciate the history behind Japan. Such a rich history, many stories, interesting people, the art for both cultures actually, in the States too. I love the entertainment in America, obviously. I love the food, but I can't say I just love Japanese food. I love American food. I mean, I always crave mac and cheese, burgers, pizza, American food style. But I love both. It's strange because when I'm in the States, back home, I can actually lose weight and be conscious of what I eat more. Like I can have a cheat day in 1 week and then just be in shape. But in Japan, it's like, there's no cheat day. I eat every day and I just get fat, But even though I'm not fat, but I gained weight in Japan, which is weird because people say they lose weight in Japan. Have you gained weight in Japan? Or?
It's funny. The first time I was in Japan 7 years ago for 7 weeks, a pretty short period of time, but I mean, I thought I looked the same.
Right.
like quite normal, like when I arrived in Japan and when I got back. But apparently, I looked quite gaunt when I got back.
Oh,
I think
really?
both from how healthy the food is here, how
Uh,
much walking
walking,
in
right?
Tokyo.
Yeah.
Last time I was here, I was in Tokyo the whole time. So like walking and to the subways, and like I got back to America, and everyone was like, "Steven, you look like you lost so much weight, or you look so skinny." Like, and I wasn't overweight to begin with when I got there, so I think I really looked like skinny when I got back.
And the public transportation in Japan, you like it, right? I mean,
I
that's
love
one
it.
of the, yeah,
I love it, honestly.
that's true. I agree.
Really,
I
New York
agree with you.
City is the only city in the United States that has that kind of comparable subways. I mean, Chicago has a lot of trains too.
Boston,
But
Boston too.
Boston,
Yeah.
I hear, has a lot like that too. But Chicago, even Chicago, like the way I don't know if you've seen. So in Chicago, the trains, it's like the loop. Like in the downtown, it's like goes in a loop in a circle, and then from there it like goes off in these different directions,
Oh,
but just
interesting.
like straight, almost like sun rays.
Okay.
And they don't, and those ones going off really don't cross like that. So the thing is, if you need to get
Oh.
somewhere in between those train lines, it's either a lot of walking or a taxi or Uber
Oh,
or
interesting. So you
like
have to go back to the center, kind of the center, right? And then go back this way. If you wanted to cross, if you wanted to go here, for example, like right here, you would have to go back here and then.
yeah, I mean
It's kind of a strange. Okay.
it's yeah, I mean I think most people don't do that because
Well,
it's
not here, but
probably
if you want to go here, if you want to
close like quicker to do some kind of other solution, but
okay.
yeah, like I'll show you a map of it. But really I feel like I haven't been to Boston, but New York is like, I mean, in New York, Tokyo, or many Japanese cities, I feel like you can just kind of walk in any random direction and eventually there will be a train station.
Interesting. Oh, well,
American cities really are not like that, I think, in general, except for New York.
I was, for anyone who doesn't know, I was born in New York City, actually, Manhattan, St. Luke's Hospital in Manhattan. But I think I was made in Chicago. Because we used to live in Chicago. That's where my brother was born. And my parents were living in Chicago before I was born. And then we moved to New York, and I was born. So maybe I was made in Chicago. Maybe I was made in New York. I don't know. This is a family channel, right?
I think it's still G-rated and off here.
So what do I love and hate about Japan, right?
Yeah.
Or both countries. So I love the different culture. I mean, I love that it's so different. I mean, that's one of the things I love about both cultures. So whenever I'm here, I miss the States. Whenever I'm in the States, I miss Japan. So it's one of those crazy things. I don't hate anything. I mean, hate is such a strong word to me that I try not to put that in my vocabulary. Like certain words, I just don't like to put. I don't like to put hate. I don't like to put I can't. It's one of those things that I feel that will bring limitations, if that makes any sense. I mean, in other words, if I say I hate something, it's like there's no turning back. I feel like that's it. You know, I could dislike something, or I can not agree on something, or I feel like I can be like indifferent, but I feel like that can still change. There's still cushion to change or room to change. But I feel like I hate the rain. I hate how things are crowded. I guess I feel like there was more space around. I don't hate it. What am I saying?
Not hate,
Yeah.
strongly dislike.
Yeah, strongly dislike. I know there's other places like probably in Hokkaido and other places that are more spread out. Because even in New York, as crowded as things may be, things are big. Things are spread. Things are just big. What do I feel like I dislike about America? I mean, there's still more in Japan, but in America is that it's just the violence sometimes. I just feel like, why are you causing violence when you don't really need to? And it really bothers me because people are fighting in Ukraine, homes are being taken away, and there's things going on all the time around the world, and and Japan and America are very lucky. We are in two countries that have so much comfort surrounding us. Other countries, they don't have the internet. There's other countries that there's no clean water, no food, no bed. There's insects. There's many famines, and here we are fighting over some stupid things. Like just the other day, I was watching the news about some people beating up this guy after an Elton John concert, and it's like, come on, I don't like why. All the luxury around us, and here we still are causing ruckus and all that things, and those are some of the things that I dislike, because the more crimes and more violence there are, the less. How can you call that your home? Why would you want to live and make your home like that? And that's the thing I just don't understand. The more violence you cause, you're surrounding yourself and making that your home like that, a hostile environment. Why would you want to make your house a hostile environment? Why don't you want to be comfortable? So that's the thing that I just don't understand more so. I don't know if I dislike it or just whatever. I just don't understand it. And in Japan too, one of the things that is not, it doesn't really bother me, but it happens sometimes when I'm walking around and people are acting like they want to start something. Not necessarily to me, but just in random. And I just think here's this peaceful country. There's no crime, and you're trying to act like a thug. But here I am, I was born in New York, raised in New Jersey and New York, seen a lot of friends, having different types of friends, lost a lot of friends through those violence. And here's Japan, and they're not about the thug life, yet they want to be the thug life. So I just don't, for me, it's hard for me to understand that. Because why cause violence when you don't have a reason to? It was more of a survival thing for some of us or some of the people that I knew. It wasn't because they wanted to fight or they wanted to be in a gang. It's just, but that's what their environment was. So they were put into that lifestyle already. But I just feel like even though their backgrounds in Japan might not be idealistic compared to their neighbors or somebody who's in your classmates, you still have the option in Japan to live a better life. Yet they resort to some sort of violence, which to me it's sad, because I feel like they have opportunities to make themselves happy. Because it's not me or other people they're affecting, they're actually affecting themselves. Because the more they do that to themselves, the more they feel like they're an outcast. And especially in the Japanese society, once you are an outcast, they'll forever make you an outcast. And in Japan, it's like there's so many opportunities where you don't have to do that. And so I feel like if there's more support systems in Japan to help people and individuals who go through alcoholism or who go through violence or who go through trouble past, to help these people rehabilitate. And I feel like I wish that there was more things like that for them. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very super interesting. All of your insights to
really, thank you.
every question, definitely. Is there anything else you'd like to share, TJ?
I mean, there's just so much I can talk about. So many things.
Might indeed have to do a part 2. I think we should.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, good sir.
Professional handshake. We usually hug, but since we're in front of the camera,
a little hard to hug with 2 chairs. We just scoot the chairs toward each other like that.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it was great talking with you, TJ, and I appreciate all your answers here. And again, like, you guys should see his movies too, because he's incredible at what he does. Acting, I mean, he's an acting coach as well, and I've seen the way he coaches his students, and I mean, it's just, he's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You should watch his films too, the ones that he directed.
Thank you. Well, we'll make some good movies together.
Yes, we will. We will.
All right.
Thank you, Canon. Thank you, GoPro.
Thank you for watching, kind viewers.
Thank you.